are good in improving the crop productivity and sustaining soil health. If we see why micronutrients, actually if you look back in the 1970s, our main paradigm was enhancing productivity. Thereafter, Green Revolution, we got enhanced the food production and become self-sufficient, but has damaged our soil system and environment. Then later on, after 2005, we are more concerned for nutritional security. And nutritional security comes from the micronutrient management. Food and nutritional, role of micronutrient in food and nutritional security. Though there are several factors which are affecting the food production, but if we look this picture, there is one-to-one relationship between the food grain production and micronutrient fertilizer use in the country. If we look the contribution of micronutrient in the national food grain production, just we have computed only for zinc and boron. It comes about 30 million tons. We have not calculated the contribution from the iron, manganese and other elements. If we compute that, it becomes about the 40 million tons. So it means there is huge contributions to the food security, national food security when we use the micronutrient. If you don't use the micronutrient, what will be the consequences? Even absence of one atom of zinc could impair the biochemical advantages arises from the 3000 to 3500 atoms of the nitrogen, 800 to 850 atoms of the K, 200 to 250 atoms of the P, and 100 to 125 atoms of the sulfur. I want to tell here that absence of micronutrients greatly affect the macronutrient use efficiency. So it means this play a very important role in enhancing the macronutrient use efficiency. As DGFAI has told in the morning, that among the six major risk factor identified by the FAO, the zinc and iron comes at the 5th and 6th place. Why our health is suffering? Because in India we have two types of diet. One is the rice based, another is the wheat based. Unfortunately, all cereals are very low in micronutrient. Moreover, the potato is common in our diet. And potato is also very low as compared to leafy vegetables, fruits. Potato is very poor in micronutrient. So this is one thing. The second important thing is here that since we are fed with the cereal-based diet, which is very rich in phytate, and phytate is the major culprit in absorption of micronutrient, as Madam Ankit Gupta from AIMS told in the morning. Just if we calculate the requirement of an adult human being based on the 10 milligram per kg body weight, then both the diets, either it is zinc, rice based or wheat based, both the diets are not sufficient to meet the zinc requirement of the human being. In the morning, I was not knowing, Madam Gupta told that for adults and for children, this requirement of zinc is not 10 milligram per kg body weight, but it is 20 milligram per kg body weight. So if we consider 20 milligram, then even the nutrient-rich food cannot meet our requirement. What is happening actually? If we compare the cultivars grown earlier in the past and now the improved cultivars, genetically improved cultivars, so the genetically improved cultivars are sipping away so many nutrients from their grains or from edible plant parts. And this is not confined to the vegetables, fruits and meats. This is also there for the grains. They are not rich in micronutrient and secondary nutrient. Another important thing is that we consider that estimated average requirement is less for the people who are sitting in this hall, for example. But this is not true. When you do less physiology, then your requirement rather increase for micronutrient as compared to the labor who is doing hard work. So what happens, the estimated average requirement and RDA has increased, but our intake has been reduced. That is not there. So there is need to increase the intake also. Nutrient mining from the soils. How much nutrient are mined? People are actually there is one long-term experiments we have conducted there in Pusa, Bihar, and another one is in Anand. So both the experiments are showing that if we don't apply the micronutrient for a longer period, so the micronutrient content in the soils is itself going down to a great extent. Sometimes people say the requirement of a crop for micronutrient is very less. The total comes about the 1,000 to 500 grams on an average. But if we compute this for the area in which these crops are grown, it comes about 188,000 tons every year. And almost double of this amount is being mined or being shipping away by the horticultural and vegetable crops. Hence, we went for the appraisal of the micronutrient deficiency using GIS reference-based mapping also. We collected the soil samples from the more than 256,000 districts, 256,000 soil samples from the 568 districts. On an average, the deficiency of zinc is 36.5%, and for this boron is about 23% and iron 11%, and then for the manganese 12.8% and copper is about 5%. But interesting thing is that here we are showing deficiency, but if you look the latent deficiency, how many crops are showing latent deficiency? Latent deficiency in case of the zinc it is 19%, for boron equal soils, equal area of soils are deficient, latent deficient in boron. Then about 7% soils are deficient, latent deficiency in iron, and similarly for manganese and copper also. So if we compare this deficiency with the world soil, which Alloway mentioned in his book in Global Micronutrient Deficiency 2008, Selanappa has done some study. They are quite matching with the Indian situations. Let us see the huge deficiency of boron in the soils. How does it matter? More than 228 districts, they are suffering due to boron deficiency. The area under acute deficiency is not much high, but the area under latent deficiency is very high. The copper deficiency, though Indian soils are not much deficient in copper, only few soils are deficient, but the soils of Tamil Nadu and particularly the which are in Punjab, Haryana, they have started showing the deficiency of copper, and Rajasthan is highly deficient in copper because of the sandy soils. The copper deficiency is also coming up in India. Then this comes about the iron deficiency. Though many districts are sufficient, more than 307 districts are sufficient in iron, showing only less than 5% iron deficiency. But there are more than 150 districts which are showing iron deficiency. The iron deficiency is peculiar in India. Actually, this varies with the seasons also. It is quite linked with the irrigation facility. If you increase the irrigation facility, iron deficiency may disappear. If we look the manganese deficiency is a problem particularly in the area where rice wheat cropping system is grown, particularly in Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. What happens? There is leaching of the manganese due to intermittent drying and wetting situations in wheat grown after rice. That is there. So manganese deficiencies are also coming up very big way, particularly in northern part of the country and some parts of the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana also. Zinc deficiency, this is much talked about. So, though zinc deficiency has reduced from 49% to 36%, however, there are more than 125 districts which are having zinc deficiency more than 50%. And interestingly, this latent zinc deficiency is still about 15% in addition to 36% acute and deficient situation. I have tried one important thing, actually Dr. Katyal has guided me, that if we superimpose the cropping system over the zinc deficiency or over the micronutrient deficiency, how the pictures look like. Here we have tried, this is the periodic distribution of the nutrients. Zinc deficiency has declined. Earlier what happens that there was a prediction that zinc deficiency may increase up to 63% if the situation has not been handled carefully. But due to continuous efforts of the government, ICR, FAI, IZA, zinc deficiency has declined. Still there are efforts needed to bring the zinc deficiency down to 16%. We have to calculate the zinc requirement for each and every taluka, and proper use of zinc has to be ensured. Let us see this zinc micronutrient deficiency. I have taken only 3 elements together. Micronutrient deficiency cropping system wise. What happens if we move from rice to the pulse crops or to the coarse grain crop? Deficiency of zinc is increasing tremendously. In rice, we have seen most of the farmers are so aware they are using the zinc fertilizer in rice, but not using zinc fertilizer in other crops. So there is need to educate the farmers or need to make a mission program for use of zinc micronutrient fertilizer in the crops other than the rice and wheat. Regarding boron deficiency is also similar cases, that the crops which the cropping system where we are growing the vegetables along with the rice, oilseed or pulses, there the deficiency of boron is very high as compared to the in rice based cropping system. However, all the cropping systems are exhibiting deficiency from 15 to 60%. We have tried to summarize one result with the intensity of the rice grown in the country. There are different colors you see here. The red color show the rice area where the cropping in the rice area is more than 75% of the total area. Then the less red color shown 46 to 75% area is under rice crop, and green show no area under rice crops, and light green shows 1 to 15% area. As the intensity of the cropping is increased, zinc deficiency decreases. This again shows the regular use of zinc fertilizer in rice based cropping system, while the reverse is true for boron. We have advocated the boron applications for the pulse crops, for the fruit crops, vegetable crops, but there are very little use of boron applications in cereal crops. That is why the boron deficiency is coming up in the rice based cropping system is increasing where the intensity of rice grown area is high. A reverse is true for the oilseed crops. Here where the intensity of this pulses crop is very high, the deficiency is also very high. Where the pulse crop production is low, the deficiency is low because of less mining from the soils, except for boron, because mostly these crops are, boron is deficient mostly in the area where pulse production is low. Means when the pulses are taken after rice crops, particularly in acid soils. So acid soils are already deficient in boron. That is why boron deficiency is showing in areas where productivity of pulses is low, while all other elements are showing very high deficiency where productivity of pulses is high. It means they have link with the productivity. Regarding the multi-micronutrient deficiency, if we look for the 2 elements or 3 elements, the no combination encompasses more than the 10% deficiency. If we combine 3 or 4 elements together, then about 2% deficiency is there across the country. So this is somehow misleading. We think there is no need of the multi-micronutrient fertilizer, and because deficiency is only 1%, 2% if we combine 2-3 nutrients together. Multi-micronutrient, I mean here, when the same soil is deficient in more than 2 elements. So what we have done, we have tried to summarize district-wise. So there are more than 100 districts where the 2 elements deficiency is more than 25%. There are more than 35 districts where 3 element deficiency is more than 25%. It means we have to look into the ground level, to the small area level, to the block level, and to the district level, so that we can identify the multi-micronutrient deficiency at district level at least. Earlier we were developing the maps, that percent deficiency map, percent sample deficient, PSD. Percent sample deficiency was not showing any relationship with which area is deficient. Suppose in one district you got the 100 samples. Out of 100 samples, 25% are deficient and rest 75% are high. So its color will show the green in color. So because this is high, it means that method of map preparation was not good. Actually, we need to identify which area is deficient and how much deficiency is there. Then we have moved from district maps to the regional level map for planning and policy decision making, and this taluka wise maps for fertilizer prescription and fertilizer recommendations. I am showing one example. This is showing the districts of the Banaskantha from the Gujarat, where if you see the district map, all the talukas are medium in this boron status. But when we prepared the same map from the same data using 0 reference point, then you will find there is huge variation in that district. Huge variation, somewhere this is the red, green, yellow, so huge variation is shown there. It means here you can make better fertilizer prescription as compared to the PSD maps. We have published one atlas, e-atlas. This is available on the website mentioned here. Here we have published more than 568 maps for zinc, iron, manganese, copper, boron, sulfur, and we have also converted some maps into regional language, the Hindi, Tamil, Telugu. Those maps will be available shortly on the site, but at least this moment you can get the English map. Crop response to the fertilizer. I have not tried to give the individual crop response. I have tried to summarize the number of the experiments conducted on farm trials. Through on-farm trials, more than 15,000 experiments conducted since 1967. Dr. Katyal, Dr. Takkar, they were also the partner of this project, started in 1967. So I have tried to summarize and grouped into the 2 categories. One is a responsive categories, another is non-responsive categories. The first one is a responsive category showing less than 200, and non-responsive is less than 200, and responsive category is 200, more than 200 to 500, and so on. So if you look here in this picture, the responsive categories, number of trials under responsive categories are increasing. This shows either the cultivars which has developed now, they are having more requirement to the micronutrient fertilizer, or the another reference could be drawn that the critical limit itself has been changed due to mining of the soil. More interesting thing is that these response is not same when we grow when we perform the experiments for the fruit crops or vegetable crops. Here the critical limits what we use for the grain crops, that does not work efficiently. So we have tried to revise the critical limits. Earlier the critical limits was in 2 categories, sufficient and deficient. Now we have made the 6 categories, that is acute deficient, latent deficient, marginally sufficient, adequate and high. And we have recommended the fertilizer recommendations for all these 6 categories. Because suppose your soils are marginally sufficient, even though you need maintenance dose of the micronutrient, whatever you are giving, taking away from the soil through crops, that has to be replenished through fertilizer. Though micronutrient critical limits vary from soil to soil, vary from crop to crop, that exhaustive documentation is needed so that the taluka level or district level decision can be made for efficient micronutrient management. We have also tried to develop some strategies which can enhance the fertilizer use efficiency. As such, the fertilizer use efficiency for micronutrients is very low, 2 to 5% only. So there is need for fertilizer industries. I request that they should develop some novel fertilizer products, and we have recently tested some metallocet fertilizer for boron and zinc. They were highly effective in enhancing the fertilizer zinc and boron use efficiency, even 1/4 of the recommended dose supplied through a standard dose. Then there is one possibility whether the fertilizer company, and there are so many companies working on the production of the organic fertilizer. Can they enrich the organic fertilizer through micronutrients? So even the small dose of the fertilizer can, give new kind of the idea to the farmers. Even 200 kg of the organic manure can meet the zinc or boron requirement of a particular crop. And then the third and most important thing is we have to identify the micronutrient efficient cultivars. And on this aspect, Dr. Sive will tell in detail the agronomic biofortification, how to move forward. And we have to develop these strategies, so he will discuss date methods type of experiment. Then a very important thing is that we cannot make management decisions for each and individual field. It is very difficult. For policy decision making, we need some kind of the management zone. So we have tried to develop some management zones that I will explain in the management part. Here, there is one is how to improve the bioflow of micronutrient in soil plant system. So there are several steps. You have to do a lot of work. We collect the large number of the varieties, do screening, then identify, grow in nutrient deficient situation, nutrient sufficient situation. Then try to identify these variety, and after identifying the enriched variety, you have to feed to the subject, maybe rat, maybe human being, and then see what is bioassimilation of those varieties. Those steps are required. I am not going in detail much, but trying to tell one thing, that we should not screen the variety inadvertently. There should be some sort of the procedure, because there are two types of variety existing in the system. One is responsive, another is non-responsive. There are varieties, it's already available in the system, which are genetically efficient, means they are able to trap the micronutrients even if the level of micronutrients in soil is low. However, there are cultivars which are not able to trap those micronutrients under low condition, but they respond to the external fertilizer applications. We call them agronomically efficient cultivars. So agronomists should work on the agronomically efficient cultivars, and breeders should work on genetically efficient cultivars for identifying the QTL. Then those QTLs may be inserted in some variety.
Dr. Shukla, in between I'll just intervene. Sorry for this, because we have a limited time available with us. I hope you will quickly finish this, and we will save time for our, questions we would like to invite.
5 minutes more?
Yeah. So you want, if you can finish it early, better?
Yeah.
So we will give more time for discussion.
Okay, fine.
Well.
We have to try some bioassimilation studies also. There, very interesting thing is that the rats like zinc-enriched food much, and the excretion of those food is also very high. Excretion of zinc from those food is also very high. But they don't like iron-enriched food much. They have taken very less iron-enriched food. I don't know what could be the reason. And iron absorption was also very less when we fed the iron-enriched variety. These are the assimilation studies conducted in the rat, and blood serum we got different results where the zinc and iron was fed, the content was high in blood. Page one. One case study I would like to show. This study has been done with the AIIMS Bhopal, All India Institute of Medical Sciences Bhopal. So there were a big team of biochemists, human nutritionists, pharmaceuticals. We worked together in 3 tribal districts, having 3 different tribes. And there we have tried to establish what is the link between soil health and human health. This is the zinc iron in plants and animals. Though this is the median intake. Median intake for zinc and iron was 75% to 66% in case of the iron. Protein intake was high in tribal groups. However, energy intake was low. Stunting is one of the important factor where zinc deficiency is there. So many subjects shown the stunting there, and then along with the stunting, we got the proportion of zinc having estimated average requirement less than the estimated average requirement. Particularly interesting thing is that on an average 35% adolescent in age group of 10 to 13 year age group were taking zinc below the estimated average requirement.
Dr. Shukla, your time is over.
Yeah, thank you. These are the management zone I was talking about. Using all properties together, we perform the PCA and then develop new management zone, and fertilizer recommendations can be made using these management zones. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shukla, for a great presentation. So now I invite few questions from the audience. Any question, if anybody has? Okay, thank you very much. So I think many recommendations have emerged out from this presentation, and he has very clearly mentioned, he has given an overview about these micronutrients. Really, everybody will agree to the role of these micronutrients, but here nutrient mining from the soil, as he has mentioned, but we need to have a kind of, we need to use those informations, particularly as he has mentioned about this micronutrient index. That's really important. How we can use this information, that is not being utilized by the different states. We need to utilize this. So geo-reference mapping of the micronutrient deficiency, it's a wonderful information, but we need to utilize this information, and further how we can use this information for the amelioration of our soils. And here, quick diagnostics are really needed. I think we need to have quick diagnostics for these micronutrients. And sufficient laboratories are not available, though we are having so many these static laboratories, then we have some mini labs, etc., etc. So many things are there, but for micronutrient, for leaf analysis in particular, there is a lack of laboratories which we need to. So here he has mentioned about this current status of this few of the micronutrients, and he has given a clear picture that how we can superimpose, and further we can draw the conclusion and use those informations for site-specific nutrient management. As he has mentioned about the cropping systems, very nicely he has mentioned that cropping system plays the greater role. But here we need to see that how we can do a kind of alignment in selection of the cropping system so that we can maintain the soil health of our areas. So here multi-nutrient deficiency, really it's a matter of worry, and we need to see that how we can address such issues and how we can go to the micro level, district level, block level, and we need to utilize those informations. And I agree with Dr. Shukla that we need to have a real-time information system which should guide us that how appropriately and nicely we can utilize those informations. So real-time information system is really a need for us. So this is the time, this is the high time where we need to revisit our critical limits. So thank you very much for wonderful presentation. So now second speaker is available with us, Dr. Y.S. Sahai. He is a principal scientist in the Division of Agronomy, IRI New Delhi, one of our premier institute, and his specialization is soil fertility, and his contributions are many in this area. And that's why he has been invited here for making the presentation. And his particular contribution has been in the area of biofortification, in particular if we speak about zinc. So I request Dr. Shivai to kindly finish your presentation in 20 minutes. I'm giving you 20 minutes means 17 minutes for your presentation, 3 minutes for discussion. Okay.
Good afternoon, each one of you. Dignitaries sitting on the dais of the dais. I'm before you to share some of the experiences working on agronomic biofortification, specifically zinc. As you know, this zinc is very essential, as it has been talked by many speakers since morning to this, my predecessor speaker, Dr. Arvind Shukla. So, why this zinc is so important, you know that in our food chain system, especially from soil to plant, plant to animals, animal to human beings, and then how can we overcome this problem? I don't say that agronomic biofortification is the only silver bullet which can solve all the problems, but this is an opportunity and also challenge to the agronomists or resource managers that we can take in, you know, that forward. Next one, please. Okay. So if you see, these are the three important micronutrients. Next one, please. Okay, let's see. These are the three micronutrients, and yesterday I was having Times of India. Everybody might have read that specifically we have seen that this is the Times of India. You know that yesterday, only 4th September, India has over 1/3 of the world's malnourished children, and this is a matter of concern. It is specifically, these are the three essential micronutrients which are contributing malnutrition or stunted. You know that hidden hunger among the children as well as the adolescents and even old age people. And if you see that role of these micronutrients, it's already has been talked about it, but I will be emphasizing specifically, you know that why this is the problem. The problem is because of that, you know that rice and wheat these are the two important cereals consumed in our country through public distribution system, and inherently these are the low accumulator of the micronutrient, especially zinc, iron, manganese, etc. And you know that wherever the people are dependent mostly on the rice, they are more vulnerable to these micronutrient deficiency. And it has been correlated specifically when we consider the micronutrient deficiency and food diet of the people. And this already has been discussed, but this is a very good initiative taken by the International Zinc Association, that is Zinc Nutrient Initiative, and it lead, you know, that better understanding about the zinc nutrition in the whole our food chain. If you see this, nearly half of the Indian population, specifically children, 61 million, they are suffering below the age of 5 years because of this zinc deficiency. And this represents approximately 34%, which, you know that incidentally yesterday's Times of India paper indicate that 1/3 people are suffering because of this malnutrition, micronutrient deficiency. The reasons have, obviously I have discussed rice and wheat. Then why it is so, as you see these slides indicate that presently we are having the zinc content in the polished rice grain, which is hardly 8 to 14 milligram per kg, and in wheat 15 to 45 milligram. And previous speaker Dr. Shukla has shown little higher because he is having more data than me. So he must be having some understanding about it. So in general we can say 30 milligram zinc is there in the wheat and 15 milligram in that rice, and which is not sufficient to meet out the requirement. And what we need specifically 40 to 60 milligram zinc per kg. This is the optimum, and current situation is 10 to 30 in the rice and wheat we consider. And that is the concern because of an agronomist for us. So agronomic biofortification or biofortification in general, it is the science which deals with the increase in the density of the micronutrient in the economic part of that any crop. But for our country, like where we are having 1.3 billion people and also 512 million bovine population, for us, grain as well as ISTA both are very important because that ISTA also comes into the food chain. So breeders, they generally go for breeding aspect, and agronomists, they go for agronomical interventions to increase the intensity of the desired micronutrient. And if we see this, we can divide into conventional approach as well as biotechnological approach. And conventional, we are having certain, that now this genetically, breed varieties which contains more micronutrients, especially zinc. In case of DRR Dhan 45 variety, biofortified variety rice is there in our country, and then WB wheat bread 02 is released from the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research. But still it's, that not available to the farmers and consumers, and there may be, that choice they may consume or they may not like that biofortified variety. It depends on the consumer's preference. But agronomic approach, irrespective of the variety, can increase the density of the desired micronutrient in the economic part. And this can be achieved specifically when we apply the fertilizer, little more than required to the high yield. And this can be achieved by adequate fertilization. Adequate fertilization we can, achieved when based on the soil test value and demand of the crop and specifically a variety. And then mode of fertilization. Mode of fertilization is where time of application, whether soil application or seed coating or foliar application or customized fertilizer or coated material. And of course, FIM is very important component for the agronomic biofortification, but mostly now it is not available. And crop rotation and intercropping. Intercropping is one of the examples from the China where they have shown if we go for wheat plus chickpea, the zinc concentration as well as iron concentration in the both crops, so economic part is increased. So this is a small intervention which can be helpful to overcome this malnutrition. And for stewardship is very important. Specifically, we are having the different sources. We have to see the sources. Zinc sulfate, zinc oxide, chelated zinc, organic manures, green manures, zincated urea. I would like to emphasize zincated urea. That early in the morning there was, discussion and some concern. We should promote this zincated urea depending on the intensity of the zinc deficiency. But, that price is not matching as the, it is involved in the production. That may be the concern. But my concern, and I wish in my life, it should be available, zincated urea, 0.5% coating to the 2% zincated urea, depending on the intensity of the zinc deficiency in the soil. And not only in rice, wheat, but other crops also. This is the win-win situation. Specifically, this not only increase the zinc use efficiency, but also nitrogen use efficiency. Then there are others like seed priming, sowing, transplanting, foliar and conditioning, etc. If we see this fertilizer, this zinc sulfate, it has some problem. A farmer, marginal farmer having a small piece of land, when he purchase 10 kg zinc sulfate after hydrate, and after some times it makes the lumps. And that its application is not so easy. Again, he has grind and then apply. So we have done some exercise to conditioning of the zinc sulfate with the 2 gram of zinc oxide and 4 gram of the neem oil, and we found it is very friable and we can keep it even 1 year. There is no problem of that lump formation. And then zinc coated urea, if you see this prill urea 0.5%, zinc coated urea and 1% coated urea. And its storability we have seen and its efficacy also in the crops. You know that one of my students worked for the PhD work and he published in the European Journal of Agronomy. And he found that 2% zincated urea, it not only increase the productivity of rice, but also increase the zinc content in grain as well as extra. Of course, foliar application zinc concentration increase was there more as compared to the soil application of zincated urea. But again, it may not be, every time advisable. But in the long run, we can advocate that zincated urea is much better. Another student work on specifically aromatic hybrid rice, Pusa hybrid rice, PRS10 hybrid rice variety. And he has shown that with the zincated urea, with the zinc sulfate heptahydrate, 2%, there was 6 milligram grain, 6 milligram zinc concentration increase in the basmati rice or aromatic hybrid rice. Of course, other sources and methods were also equally important in increasing the zinc concentration. But zincated urea was found much better in this trial. And it is not only that fertilizer, but sometimes when we are having a rice wheat cropping system, even if we go for, some double purpose green manure crops like mung bean, urd bean, and after picking their portion, if we incorporate into the soil, this is also an agronomic intervention which can help in increasing the micronutrient concentration in the grain as well as extra as compared to the keeping them fallow. And it is obvious that when we add the organic matter, it makes the chelating and then increase the zinc concentration in the economic part of the crop. Then relative efficacy of the zinc sulfate and chelated zinc. Chelated zinc is a little costlier and it may not be affordable, but its efficacy is little higher as compared to the zinc sulfate. And when we applied 3 times of foliar spray at booting stage, grain filling, and as well as the maximum tilling stage, we found that almost 7 milligram zinc concentration increase in the basmati rice grain, and extra almost 16, 17 milligram per kg of extra. So it is a huge jump when we go for specifically foliar feeding. And this is one of the, that approach which has been advocated even at the global level by Checkmate and his group for increasing the zinc concentration. Then rate of application is also very important. This paper has been published in Agriculture Research, and we found that when we go for coating onto the filled urea of zincated urea ranging from 0.5 to 2%, we found that there was successive increase in the zinc concentration in the grain as well as extra, and more increase was there in the specifically extra as compared to the grain. And in rice, there is a problem of translocation of zinc from the, source to the sink. And most of the zinc remain in the extra. This is a major concern. And we want to work in the tandem with the breeders to identification some of the varieties which are having the, the better translocation ability as compared to the other. And this can be advocated. This is another experiment which we have done in the wheat, and we found that zinc concentration in wheat is more in grain as compared to the extra, and there is no problem for translocation of the zinc from source to the sink. And zinc concentration was increased by 2% zincated urea from 39 milligram per kg to 51 milligram, almost 11, 12 milligram zinc increase. And similar trend was also found with the extra. And surprisingly, if you see this recovery efficiency is a little higher as compared to the, that if we go only soil application, it is 10 to 12% in recovery efficiency. So I say that I see this product as a zincated urea in the market to for specifically increasing the nitrogen use efficiency as well as zinc use efficiency. Then this is the slide which I have taken from that Harvest Plus project, and it has been published in Plant and Soil. They have shown from India, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Turkey, Mexico, China, Australia, Germany, Iran, that when they have applied zinc, it recorded, that 50 milligram per kg of grain, as compared to when zinc was not applied, they recorded only 26 milligram zinc per kg of grain. So it is a quite huge jump when they have gone for 2 foliar spray. And we have also tested specifically to the chickpea, although they are a good accumulator of the zinc, but whether really they also respond. And we found when we apply zinc from 2.5 kg to 7.5 kg, there was quite significant increase in the zinc concentration in the grain and straw. And we also have done some exercise for chickpea biofortification through foliar feeding. And we found that foliar feeding, again, 53% increase was there in the grain and 90% increase in the zinc concentration in the straw. And both are equally important in our food chain. And recovery efficiency as well as agronomic efficiency, if you see this agronomic efficiency as high as 400 kilogram grain increase per kg of zinc apply and 15 to 16% recovery efficiency through this foliar feeding. And then oat is very important crop in the coming time because of that some medical, advisory for the specifically those who are having high cholesterol and they like more fiber. So we thought whether we can work for biofortification this crop, and we found that in this soil application did not work much, but seed coating, 2 kg zinc onto 100 kg of seed, we found almost 44% increase in the grain concentration and agronomic efficiency as high as more than 400 kilogram increase and 70% crop recovery. So we cannot say that every, technology or every package of practices can work for same the crops. We need to identify. We have also seen in that corn is also very important for agronomic biofortification. We found that in this case, soil plus foliar application is the best, instead of alone soil application or foliar application. Only, sir, 2 minutes.
1 minute.
Okay, sir. Okay. So this slide indicates that in global level, Harvest Plus 2015, 79% increase in the wheat grain, brown rice 22% and maize 8%. And it almost as our results indicated on the same lines. So I will not discuss this. Chairman sir is asking just identification of certain gene varieties which can be, having higher response to the zinc application, and we found some variation in the chickpea varieties for the zinc concentration in the grain and as well as straw. Similar is the case with the rice. That lot of variation was there in the rice. We have taken 4 or 5 varieties of release from the IRI, so we found lot of variation. I would like to conclude that, again I would like to say that, that agronomic is one of the approach which can up to some extent reach to the underprivileged people who are taking their food from the national public distribution system of rice and wheat. They cannot afford the tablet. They cannot take the minerals, the tablet from prescribed by the medical doctor and other things. But if we can make some recommendation for biofortification, for foliar feeding or zincated urea, these are the 2 important approaches by which we can increase the zinc density, and it will not only increase the productivity, nutritional quality, but at the same time it can overcome the malnutrition of zinc from that our food chain, which is my dream that which comes true in coming time. Thank you very much.
For a very good presentation, and you have very clearly mentioned about the agronomical biofortification procedures, And we can make out, easily we can make out that agronomical biofortification is a very simple and inexpensive techniques. But anyway, we invite some questions from the audience if anybody wants to ask. Any question? Yes. Okay.
Does increase in the zinc content in the edible part necessarily mean increase in the bioassimilation of zinc into the body? Because that there are a lot of reports I have heard or read where these things are not necessarily directly related. That is number one. Number two, I thought because in the morning we heard about a China experiment where these biofortified foods have a premium in the market. So are you also working with the policy makers in our country? Because otherwise, as a farmer, why a farmer should go for extra investment in zinc application just to make biofortified unless he gets an extra premium? So these are the two aspects of the questions I thought it might be relevant. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for asking the right questions and pertinent to my topic. First question, that it's not necessary when zinc concentration is increased in the economic part, that is grain or maybe kind of any fruit and vegetables, that can be assimilated, absorbed by the consumer. That we have seen some of that literature, I have not worked on it, that when zinc concentration is increased, the ratio between the phytic acid, which is that anti-inhibitory quality specifically for zinc absorption in the body, consumer's body. So the ratio between the zinc and phytic acid decrease, and that helps in the absorption. So it is there in the literature, but I have not worked on it. And second question you have asked that whether premium prices producers can get, or are you working on these lines as Chinese they are having? I do hope in the future some private company they can play a pivotal role specifically to popularization of biofortified or agronomic biofortified, that product selling in the supermarkets and departmental stores. But at present, we don't have any mechanism in place or synergy between these two things, that selling of the biofortified produce in the market. But I am sure that there is a lot of openings and there are a lot of opportunity. There is opportunity for contact farming. There is opportunity, that protected agriculture along with this, that product which can be sold into that specifically metropolitan cities where is a huge demand. So right now we don't have, but I have a dream like you that some companies must come forward and they should have that, to sell the product of the produced by the farmers.
Thank you. One more question from this side.
Thank you very much. I congratulate Dr. Shiva for the excellent presentation and very much data.
Thank you, sir.
My question is very simple, that I've seen that the zinc content in the wheat has gone from 45 to 70 milligram, and it meets the requirement of the human being. If you take daily diet, this is what has been reported, if you calculate that. But this will be achieved with the application of extra foliar application, and the cost of that foliar application, the economics, what is that cost? Who is going to pay the farmer for that if he is going to adopt this technology? And we want to have a zinc deficiency cured in the human being.
Sir, your question is very valid because that extra money is required for foliar application, and that need to be looked into. But we have seen many farmers are asking, questions from us. We are having a, such type of symptoms similar to the zinc deficiency. Then we are advocating them for foliar feeding. So if we can advocate when deficiency occurs, and farmers can apply along with some insecticide and pesticide, then cost can be cut down. And some of the literature is there that insecticide and pesticide combination with foliar feeding of the zinc is possible, and some of the published work. So if we see in totality, of course, cost is involved in the foliar feeding, and farmers are not going. That is why I am more, optimistic about the use of zincated urea. Depending on the intensity of the zinc deficiency, we must have that policy to produce 0.5% to 2% zincated urea, depending on the intensity of the zinc deficiency in a specific crop and crop rotation. I do hope Dr. Arvind Shukla will agree with my suggestion, and some of the notes will take policy makers, because this is the right time. And we have introduced one that formula, micronutrient induced huge efficiency of macronutrient, which has been published in Indian Journal of Fertilizers. And in this Dr. Arvind Shukla has already said, but we have given one formula how that micronutrient specifically, when we are going for sulfur coated urea, zinc coated urea, or maybe phosphogypsum coated urea, how they are helping to increase the nitrogen use efficiency. And we can calculate that use efficiency. So, sir, I am very much optimistic that all the technologies cannot be advocated, but that identifying the problems based on the identification and pertinent, we can advocate the technology.
Sir, one more question.
Thank you.
In the
First
episode, there are-
introduce yourself first.
Myself, Dr. R.K. Nayak, Chief Manager, IFFCO, Lucknow.
Okay, please.
In the episode, there is two products, NPK complexes and DAP fortified with zinc. And you are advocating the zincated urea. Which combination is better as far as the farmer's perspective? Which is the most vital for the rectification of zinc deficiency?
I have not tested any NPK plus zinc product, but of course this is new area. One of my colleagues is working on this, zinc embedded in NPK, and he has got, but zinc, this nano zinc embedded in NPK. That product is testing. Let us hope that how he gets the response. But these are the new area where we can work that NPK plus zinc. I have not worked
Sir,
on
I am
it.
asking because Government of India in their subsidy regime, they have given the incentive of 500 rupees per ton for fortification with DAP and NPK complexes.
Okay.
As far as-
I'll reply to this question later. Okay, any other question? Okay, so let me sum up, anything?
Let me thanks to the organizers giving me this opportunity. I really thanks to our organizers, and they have given me opportunity to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shivai.
Thank you.
So his presentation really highlights many things, particularly this agronomical biofortification, but we need to link it that how we can combat this micronutrient malnutrition. In particular, we need to do that. Yes, it varies from crop to crop. You have mentioned that there is a high consumption of the cereals. Really, it is creating a kind of micronutrient malnutrition. So here we need to see that how nutri-cereal will pitch in. So here more burden is on wheat, cereal and maize. But nutri-cereals are very important crops, and they have been considered that yes, they are the very good sink of these micronutrients. And you might be aware that Government of India has started the new mission on millets, and we have given a new name to it, National Mission for Nutri-Cereals. So this is a kind of branding which we have done it. And I got the opportunity to present the proposal from Government of India in FAO, committee in agriculture meeting in FAO Council also. I made a presentation, and I presented the proposal that we need to observe International Year for Millets. And that proposal has been accepted, and world has been now allotted 2023 to celebrate International Year for Millets. So this is one of the point where Nutri-Cereals name has been given, and we want to link it with those things because these are the crops which are best suited for the agro ecosystems. So you clearly mentioned that rice Here, the sink of the micronutrients is more in straw, but in grains it is less. In case of wheat, it is more, but in case of straw, it is less in wheat, within the wheat I'm saying. So here we need to conduct a kind of basic studies, really we need to do, and we need to find out the reason that how this is happening, and some kind of plant physiology is involved into it, and how we can pass on this information to the breeders, so that tailor-made varieties could be developed with the more efficiency of this micronutrient absorption from the soils. I think this could be. So we need to pass on this information to the breeders. So very good presentation you have made, but one or two recommendations from your student study, particularly that this 2% zinc, and then you mentioned about this zinc-edited urea, and you also discussed about this zinc